Valinihite plavagendra shanyar Velam agata samanu jojabhavachit no Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri Tagvatma kritya hata kritya aham kabandham Sakyam vidaya kapibhirdayita gatim toy Budvata valinihit ate plavagendra shanyar Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri Dharvatma kritya hata kritya hankadamman Sakyam vidaya kapibirdaita katim thai Budvata valinihate plavagendra shannai Velam agat samanujo Jabhavachitangri Chitangri it just stays the same. Velam agat samanujo Jabhavachitangri stays the same. That's the meter. Okay. Who else wants to try? Dharvatma krita hata kritya maham kabandham Sakyam vidaya kapibirdaita gatim thai Sakyam vidaya kapibirdaita gatim thai Budvata kalini hate plakavendra sangai Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri not chitangri it's the same note Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri not chitangri same note. You're learning something today. That's how the meter goes. Okay? Who else wants to try? Tagvatma kritya hata kritya maham kabandham Sakyam vidaya kapibirdaita gatim thai Sakyam vidaya kapibirdaita gatim thai Budvata valinihate plavagendra sanyai Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri Velam agat samanujo jabhavachitangri Chitangri. Anyone else? Dad Budvatma kritya hata krityam aham kabandham. Sakyam vidaya kapividayitam katimtai. Budvata Vāli niyate lavagendra sanyai. Velam magat samanucho javavachitangri. Word meanings? Dagdva, by burning. Atma kritya hata krityam. After performing religious rituals required after the death of Jaṭāyu, who all right, let's break this up. After performing religious rituals. Oh, you have it. Oh, you have it. Okay. Required after the death of Jaṭāyu, who died for the Lord's cause. Ahan, killed. Kabandham, the demon Kabandha. Sakyam, friendship. Vidhaya, after creating. Kapibihi, with the monkey chiefs. Daitagatim, the arrangement for delivering Sītā. Tai, by them. Budva, knowing. Ata, thereafter. Vāli hate, when Vāli had been killed. Plavaga in the sanyai, with the help of the soldiers of the monkeys. Velam, to the beach of the ocean. Agit, went. Saha, he, Lord Rāmacandra. Manuja, appearing as a human being. Aja, by Lord Brahmā. Bhava, and by Lord Śiva. Archita, Angrihi, whose lotus feet are worshipped. Translation: Lord Rāmacandra, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Lord Brahmā and Lord Śiva, had assumed the form of a human being. Thus, he performed the funeral ceremony of Jaṭāyu, who was killed by Rāvaṇa. The Lord then killed the demon named Kabandha, and after making friends with the monkey chiefs, killing Vāli, and arranging for the deliverance of Mother Sītā, he went to the beach of the ocean. So this part of the Bhagavatam, it's not as elaborate as Ramayana, but it's giving the highlights, basic points. Purport. When Rāvaṇa kidnapped Sītā, he was obstructed on the way by Jaṭāyu, a large bird. But the powerful Rāvaṇa defeated Jaṭāyu in the fight and cut his wing. When Rāmacandra was searching for Sītā, he found Jaṭāyu almost dead and was informed that Sītā had been carried off by Rāvaṇa. When Jaṭāyu died, Lord Rāmacandra did the duty of a son by performing the funeral ceremony. And then he made friends with the monkeys to deliver Sītā Devi. Hare Krishna. So, his story of Jaṭāyu is actually amazing. But you could say that he thought he could defeat Rāvaṇa Or you could say he didn't know if he could defeat Ravana, or you could say he didn't think he could defeat Ravana. But in any case, he fought Ravana. Because that was his duty, right? Plus, I think we can safely say he was willing to sacrifice his life for Lord Ram. So it's quite instructive. Are we willing to do whatever is required of us, even if we don't know if we'll succeed? So that's one example. No. Should I do it? We may think I should only do it if I will succeed. Did Srila Prabhupada know if he would succeed? Sometimes he said yes, and sometimes he said no, but if we study the prayers of Jaladutta, on the Jaladutta, when Prabhupada arrived, we can understand that he had no idea how this was going to work. He had faith it could work by Krishna's mercy, but he didn't know. So it was kind of both. You know, Krishna can do anything, but I don't know if this is going to happen. If it's going to happen, I have no idea how. I don't understand. Krishna, you could make it happen, you can empower me, but I don't know if it's going to happen. And I spoke to some of the older devotees in the movement, and I asked them, do you think when Prabhupada came, he was doubtful? He had doubts that he would be successful, and they said yes. And it seems like it. I mean, no one had done it before. But why did Prabhupada come? We know he came because he had the order. That he didn't come to be successful, he came to fulfill the order, and the fulfillment of the order is the success. Whatever happens after that is icing on the cake. So that was the success, that he executed the order. So Srila Prabhupada was trying to get his godbrothers to help, and he was having a difficult time getting them to help. And finally, one disciple of one of Prabhupada's godbrothers was interested in coming. And Prabhupada said, please come. This Prabhupada was alone, and even if he had a few disciples, they didn't know anything. So he very much wanted his godbrothers to come and help, thinking, well, this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. It's not my work. We should do this together, and I need your help because these young boys and girls need to be educated. So this brahmachari had asked his spiritual master if he could come. And his spiritual master did not think that Prabhupada would be successful. And he declined to send the brahmachari who was willing to come. I think, interesting, this brahmachari later became a sannyasi, and he moved in the New York temple. He might still be there, I don't know. I think his name is Mangaloy. Yeah, there was a sannyasi, I'm pretty sure, because I was in New York, 20 years ago, and there was a sannyasi living there, and I'm pretty sure that was the brahmachari Prabhupada wanted. He was living in the temple just like a regular ISKCON devotee. In any case, his spiritual master did not allow him to come, and Prabhupada was writing him and kind of talking to him and saying, this is Mahaprabhu's mission, you should come. Like, I guess he was saying, indirectly, talk to your spiritual master and tell them, it's not my mission, it's Mahaprabhu's mission. This is important, etc. Still, he didn't come. And his spiritual master thought, it's going to be impossible, so why would I send someone to do something impossible? It would just be a waste. And he used the word ludicrous. Ludicrous means you're trying to do something, like you're so crazy, you're trying to do something that can never be done. That's called ludicrous. I think there was a rap star called Ludacris, maybe. But ludicrous means, that's like, if you have an idea, Mahatma Prabhu, I think we should, it's a crazy idea. I think we should build a spaceship here. Knock the temple down and build a spaceship, and then we'll tell people this is a spaceship going to Vaikuntha, right? And how much it'll cost? 6 million rupees. Yeah, I'll raise the money. It's like that's ludicrous, right? Something like that. So this brahmachari wrote back to Prabhupada, and this really triggered Prabhupada. He said, your efforts in America are ludicrous. Whoa. You imagine. You're getting no help from your godbrothers, and now they're telling you this is you're crazy for coming to America, and you're wasting your time. Hare Krishna. You can find this letter. Well, I don't think you can find the letter this person wrote, but you can understand from Prabhupada's reply more or less what he wrote. So this letter must be, 66, 67, 68 maybe. And it's to someone called Mongol Aloy? What would the Bengali be? Mongol Aloy? Mongolai. And maybe Prabhupada spelled it Mongol. Mongol Aloy or Oloy? Maybe all O's or unalloyed auspiciousness, Mongol Aloy, pure auspiciousness. So he wrote back a letter to this person, and Prabhupada said, the effort to preach Mahaprabhu's mission is never ludicrous, number one. It's never, no matter if you're given an order by your guru, how could you, and you're trying to execute it, how could you call that ludicrous? That is ludicrous, to call it ludicrous, right? Your guru gave you an order, you're trying to do it, you're the sparrow on the beach putting sand in the ocean. Because your guru gave you this order. We've told the story before that before Prabhupada came to America, he went to Mayapur and he was chanting and crying. And the Pujari there who knew him from before said, what's going on? He said, I have an impossible mission. This is impossible. So my guru has given me an impossible mission. So if your guru gives you an impossible mission, what do? Of course, you go to sleep, right? Because it's impossible, so why bother? And when you wake up, you have some pakoras and halva with tomato chutney, because it's an impossible mission. Right? That's what you do. No. It's not what you do. Because it's the order of the Guru, you understand my success is making the attempt to execute the instruction. So getting back to the letter, Prabhupada said, it's never ludicrous. And he said, we are soldiers. We are Mahaprabhu's soldiers in the field. And the soldier's duty is to fight. And they have this saying, I don't know if you have this saying in your army, they have this saying in America. Ours is not to wonder why, ours is just to do or die. In other words, you get the order, you don't wonder why you got it, just do it. And you might get killed. Of course. That sounds a bit cultish, doesn't it? But you understand the principle. Okay, Chaitanya Dasya, I want you to jump off the building. And I want to see if you have faith in Krishna. Because if you have faith, you're going to jump from the top floor and you won't get hurt, and then she jumps off and dies. And front page of the Slovenian newspaper, Hare Krishna cult guru tells disciple to jump off the, So, Prabhupada wasn't told to jump off and kill himself. Although some people may have thought, he's going there to die. Some people did think like that. Anyway, so Prabhupada said, we're soldiers. It's not about success or failure. It's about the effort. And then you go to Bhagavad Gita. It's the same thing. Krishna's telling Arjuna, be detached from success and failure and just fight. So Prabhupada's he's right there, the impossible order, and then he does it. And like Jaṭāyu, Prabhupada, you may have heard Prabhupada sometimes telling stories. Sometimes he would sit with devotees and he would tell them, what it was like to come here and what happened in that first year. And Prabhupada said, I didn't know if there was anything to eat. And I think he brought something with him, some oatmeal or I don't know what. What was it? Was it oatmeal or?
I think so.
Or dried potatoes or something, like backpackers use cereal or something. He didn't know. He actually didn't know. And then he thought, America's the most materialistic country, how was it going to be possible? That just doesn't seem possible. So pretty much he risked everything, and we say he came with whatever it was, 7 rupees or 8 rupees, right? Did you know that rupees are useless in America? So he came with 7 rupees, it doesn't matter because you can't use them. And what I understand is he sold his books on the boat and he got like $20, but that was just taxi fee, so he had nothing. He came with nothing. Hare Krishna. And an interesting fact, you probably understand, but you may have never really thought about it. An interesting fact about early ISKCON's expansion expanded exactly the way Prabhupada came to America. You, go to the city and open a temple. But Prabhu, we don't have anything. Just go. Krishna will take care of you. Here's 100 euros, figure it out. Here's enough for bus fare. That's how basically we started. New temples. It was I don't know if it's the way Prabhupada wanted it, but we did it the way he did it. And then, of course, we didn't have internet then. So we would occasionally get letters from Prabhupada's secretary, and there would be, like 1 or 2 pages of quotes of things Prabhupada had said recently and things he had done, like 2 weeks later or whatever. And then we got this letter, and in it, the devotee, I think it was Shama Sundar, he said, Prabhupada said, if you are willing to go anywhere to spread Lord Chaitanya's movement without caring, without concern how you will live, like just go. But what will I eat? But where will I stay? Just go, spread Krishna consciousness. Then Prabhupada said, I will take the dust of your feet and I will put it on my head. Hare Krishna. So we are already in that mood, and that solidified it. And when we heard that letter, we threw as many books as we had in the temple in a van and made sure we didn't bring any money. We just filled the gas tank. We made sure we didn't bring any food or money, and we drove off because now we're going not knowing how we'll eat and where we'll sleep. We couldn't sleep in the van. We were crazy. But we were inspired, and that's what we did. And somehow or other, it was really good. You want to hear the story? It's a really interesting story. It's funny. this was at a time when no one in ISKCON had distributed big books. That was just unheard of. It was like thought, you can't do that. Nobody would be interested, and they're too expensive. So we just distributed magazines. And so we started trying to do big books, and we started distributing a few, but it was like a new thing. And you didn't know from day to day if you were just lucky the day before, and you'll never be able to do it again. So we were so inspired when we heard that letter that we drove off in the winter in Canada. Canada's cold in the winter. I know it's cold here, but it's probably the same. How cold does it get here in the winter? What's a normal day? Minus 10, yeah. So, yeah. We went in traveling, we went to cities that were in the same longitude as Moscow. So it was like snow for, I don't know how many months, it was cold. So we left in the afternoon and we drove to this little town. And this is 1971, I think. So every town we're going to, they have no idea what Hare Krishna is. They've never seen a devotee. We get to be the first devotees. It's like landing on the moon. We're the first devotees that land in these cities. And in those days, the strategy was just you go on the street and you chant. That's all we did. You just go on the street and chant. So we arrived like 8 at night in this little town, freezing cold, nobody on the street, no money, freezing cold. There we were, just the way we wanted it. Totally dependent on Krishna, not knowing how we're going to eat and how we're going to sleep. We go out there, no one on the street, can't see anybody. Hare Krishna, 8 o'clock at night, Hare Krishna, really cold, Krishna, Krishna. This drunk comes stumbling down the street, because he's the only one who can stay warm because he's drunk, right? And so we have this one book distributor, and he was the one who really broke open big book distribution. Nobody thought it could be done, but he figured it out. So here this drunk comes, and he goes up to him with a Krishna book, and we're all looking at him thinking, his name is Thakur Haridas. He was a little eccentric, and we're thinking, Thakur Haridas, you are completely crazy, trying to distribute a Krishna book to a drunk man. And we're going, Hare Krishna. There were 4 of us, so 3 chanting, and Hare Krishna, and we're just looking at him thinking, there's nothing else to look at but him, right? Trying to sell the book, and we're like, and like 3 minutes later, $8 comes out of the drunk's pocket, and we're like, so now, and it's like, well, now we have $8, so we can go to the next, enough money for petrol to go to the next city. Now what do we do? It's 9 o'clock at night in this cold city. We're driving around and we see this place like a hostel, student hostel. We knock on the door. Come in, come in. It was like a brahmacharya ashram. They had bunk beds everywhere. And there was like nobody there. I said, come in, it's all yours. What do you want for breakfast? And we told them. The next morning they had our breakfast. And then after breakfast we went out knocking on doors. Said, we're just traveling monks, and do you have any pots and pans and spoons you don't need? Because we have nothing to cook with. Sisi Gaurnitai ki jai, Panchatattva ki jai. And one lady said, oh, my nephew, he's a devotee. And we were from Vancouver. My nephew's a devotee in Vancouver? Sure. She gave us pots, spoons, like everything we needed. And then we will also, all the other devotees say, we're just traveling monks, could you spare some rice, some potatoes, carrots? So we had like rice, beans, carrots, potatoes, like we had everything just begging. Cooked it all up, and then had our $8 in petrol, went to the next city. Go on the street, we were like, with no money, of course we're collecting something, selling. And, this is the hippie days, and we're asking, like, you have a place we can stay? And these hippies said, well, yeah, we have a shop, and in the back of the shop there's a, storage room. You can stay there. Here's the keys. They let us, it was the hippie days. We're staying in a shop, just us. They met us 10 minutes ago, and we're living in a shop like that. Anyway, there's so many stories. We eventually went to another city, and these hippies, there were like 8 hippies living in this, it was like a communal house, and they had an attic, which is a huge attic, and they gave us the attic. And they let us turn their whole house into a temple. So we had Sunday feast, and like 60 people were coming. And I think like 4 people actually became devotees from that 1 or 2 weeks we stayed there. And like, okay, we left with no money, and now 4 people have become devotees. One of them's a sannyasi now. All Prabhupada disciples, of course. And we were writing letters to the devotees because we're getting on television, radio, newspaper, like all these things were happening. We were writing letters back to the temple, and we didn't know that. And the temple was forwarding those letters to Prabhupada. Because this was the first traveling party like ever in ISKCON. It was actually the second, but the first really big one. And the devotees were so inspired, they were sending letters back to Prabhupada. And we didn't know that. When we got back, they said, "Oh, we sent all your letters to Prabhupada." I was like, really? Maybe I would have written them differently. But they were so excited. Then Prabhupada wrote us back, and he said, this is advancement in Krishna consciousness. That you take every opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness. And I can see you've taken every opportunity. Because he read all the letters. Like we had a program with like 100 Hindus. I never even seen a Hindu in my life. And we met some Hindus, and they wanted to do a program. And we did this like amazing program, and I cooked the halava, and they said that was the best halava we ever had. Yeah, I am now the halava acharya. If you want to learn how to cook halava, you learn from me. And it was so we're writing Prabhupada all these letters of all these amazing programs, just like incredible, one after another. He said, this is advancement. You take every opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness. So he was like praising us, that we're advanced devotees. So that was the mood of ISKCON. I don't know how we're going to do it, but my guru wants it. So it doesn't matter if I fail, but I have to at least die trying. I can't go to my grave dead without trying. I'd rather die trying than die not trying. I'm going to die anyway, right? So that's the inspiration I'm getting here from Jaṭāyu, that he's willing to sacrifice his life. It's not like every day you combat Rāvaṇa. How many arms did Rāvaṇa have? 10 heads, 20 arms, or hundreds of arms, or And Rāvaṇa is one powerful person. It's not like you normally try to fight him, right? So here we are, with these young devotees, and Prabhupada saying, you become spiritual master, like 1968, I want you all to become spiritual master, spread Krishna consciousness all around the world. Like, okay, how do we do that? So everything Prabhupada was giving us, young devotees, was like, okay, go start a temple. But Prabhupada, I've only been a devotee like 6 months. Go start a temple. Like, how do I do that? Go start a temple. Krishna will reveal it to you. I was 8 months temple president. I had a godbrother 6 months temple president. And he said, this godbrother told me, he said, I didn't even know the Bhagavad Gita. I hadn't even really read it. So I said, well, what did you teach in class? He said, I just talked about what I used to do, and my realizations and becoming a devotee. I said, we didn't know anything. So it was like that. That was the mood. Like, the Guru gives an order. And one of the reasons I think we could do it is because we always felt if Prabhupada gave the order, we must be able to do it. Like, he knew it could be done. We didn't know how it could be done. And you can say the same thing with Bhaktisiddhanta. Like, he could see that preaching would be successful in the West. And he said it would be more successful, that people in the West would take it up more than the Indians, because the Indians weren't taking it up. Until the Westerners took it up, the Indians didn't. We just met a man in Germany. Oh, it's a beautiful story. He came to Janmashtami, and then, and then he came for the Prabhupada Vyas Puja, and so we're letting people share. And he said, I grew up 40 miles from Vrindavan, 40 kilometers, it's not 40 miles, so that's the Vrindavan area, I grew up there. Here's my wife, she grew up 20 miles, like she's from Raval or something, Radharani's birthplace. And we didn't even know who Krishna was until we came to Germany and met the ISKCON devotees. Hare Krishna. What a story. I mean, there's hundreds of stories of Indians learning of Krishna consciousness after leaving India, but you would think in Vrindavan, they said we didn't even know Krishna was God and we lived in Vrindavan. Hare Krishna. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had this vision that Krishna consciousness would be more successful outside of India, and it was only because we went back that it became successful. So, when Prabhupada was giving us these impossible tasks, there was this faith, like that he had vision that it would be successful, that somehow Krishna would help us. Perhaps you know this story. This is maybe one that illustrates this point more than anything. The devotees were traveling in India. I'm not sure where they were coming from, but they were going to Amritsar. Amritsar is the place of the Sikhs, and they have the Golden Temple. I'm not sure exactly why Prabhupada was going, but he would go everywhere in India. So he had a group, and the train stopped in Delhi. When it stops in the big station, it might stay for 10, 15, or 20 minutes, half hour, so you can get out. And I think devotees, all we knew was to do kirtan. So whenever we get out, we just do kirtan. And some man was there meeting Prabhupada and said, we really need a temple in Delhi. Can you start a temple? And so sometimes when people would say these things, like if someone said that to you, it's like, how are we going to start a temple? We're on our way to Amritsar. It's not practical, and call me up later, we'll talk about it. That's normally how we would process it, right? But Prabhupada often would see these as signs from Krishna. If someone say, why don't you do this? He would think, that's a stupid idea. How can we do that? There's only, 8 of us and we're going to Amritsar. I'll get back to this story. I'll tell another story. Prabhupada had a stroke during a holiday. We have a holiday in America called Memorial Day. You have that here? You remember the soldiers who died in the battle. I don't know if people actually remember them. They're probably too drunk on Memorial Weekend to remember anything. But you know how you have a holiday that's supposed to celebrate something, and people just get drunk, and that's how they celebrate. But anyway, it was in New York, and New York it's a big city, 20 million people in this little area. But as soon as you get outside New York, it's just forest. It's beautiful, and so you're in this city, so on holidays, like everybody leaves, like New York becomes a ghost town. Everybody just leaves and goes on vacation. So Prabhupada had a stroke, and they're calling doctors. There's no doctor in those days. I don't know. They didn't have emergency rooms. I don't know. They couldn't get a doctor. And so they finally got this one guy, this one doctor to come, kind of an eccentric doctor. He comes, says, where are you? He looks at the old man, does the, stethoscope or whatever, Prabhupada just had a stroke, right? So they say to the doctor, so what's wrong? The old man prays too much. He needs to get out and walk. Tell him to get out and walk. He's praying too much. He needs to walk every day. And then he left. Just after Prabhupada had a stroke, that was like no medicine, nothing. The old man prays too much. He needs to get out and walk. And they thought, this doctor is crazy. He just had a stroke. You don't tell us. And Prabhupada heard what he said. And Prabhupada said, this doctor has given very good advice. From that day, Prabhupada went on a walk every day. Every day, no matter what. Cold, hot, rain, snow, just went out. He said, this doctor. So Prabhupada was like that. He didn't always think, is this practical? He'd think, he said, Krishna spoken. Of another story. There was a devotee named Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and he had this huge traveling party. They had like 6 big buses, like, I don't know, the buses, nice big buses, and they take out all the seats, put in a kitchen in the back, and okay, so here's the bus, here's the back, the front. The very back is a kitchen, and then there's a bathroom, shower, small, just basically big enough to get in. And then the kitchen ends and they have a little wall, so you can still get in the kitchen. And the wall, that's where the altar is. And then it's just empty, so that's your temple room. You have deities. So these buses would travel and do preaching in the colleges, and they would have vans, satellite vans, that would go, come back every night, and they go out and distribute books and come back, or go out for a week and meet them. So the bus was the temple, and it was all brahmacharis. And then sometimes they'd drive up to a city where there's a temple, and sometimes they would just go where there's no temple. And when they go to the city, they would, all brahmacharis, distributing books. It was like very high energy. The kirtans, it was like dancing, nonstop. You must have had that experience when you were younger, brahmachari, just book distribution, kirtan, and they're really, rough, tough brahmacharis, so they're there, and it's like, and all the other brahmacharis are like, whoa, this is cool, and they're going, yeah, we're traveling with the sannyasis, we're brahmacharis. Brahmacharis should travel with sannyasis. You stay here in the temple, you'll get married, you get fired up, come with us, so it's like, so they come to the temple, they do their book distribution, and then, they usually would leave like a week later after Mangalartik, So they'd leave after Mangalartik, and like Guru Puja would come, and it's like, where are all the brahmacharis? They all left. But it's called the Radha Damodar party because they had Radha Damodar deities, and the deities would travel, so they had to tie them up, so Prabhupada called them Radha Damodar, because you had to tie them up so they wouldn't fall in the bus. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in charge of that party, and in Mayapur in 1976, all the temple presidents came complaining, said they're stealing our devotees. And this upset Prabhupada so much. He was so upset. They were all coming complaining, we're losing all our brahmacharis, we can't run the temple. The Radha Damodar party is taking. And of course, they were denying it. We're not stealing the devotees. Yeah, you're not telling the devotees to leave, you're just telling them, if you stay here, you'll remain in Maya and get married. And you're a brahmachari, and brahmacharis should travel with sannyasis. So that, if that's not telling them to leave, I don't know what is. But he denied it. So Prabhupada was so angry. So one morning after Mangalartik, Prabhupada sent his servant. No. So Prabhupada just like chastised him, And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very heavy, and sometimes Prabhupada would be heavy with disciples who were heavy, equal energy, So he was really heavy. He was really angry. He was really upset. And Prabhupada saw this as really something that could create a split in the movement, brahmacharis, grihastas, This was like the original brahmachari grihasta feud, And Prabhupada saw it coming, and he just stopped it, because he saw this could destroy the movement. If we create these factions, brahmachari, grihasta. because in Prabhupada's eye, there's no difference. We're all preaching white, saffron, and married, not married. It wasn't we made a big deal about it. He never made a big deal about it. So this devotee, he was like, I don't know. He was like, he didn't know what to say. He felt so bad. And Prabhupada said, we're taking you out of this party. And he said, Prabhupada, if you take me out of this party will fall apart. And Prabhupada said, it is not your party anymore. It is my party. Prabhupada was so upset, even though the party would fall apart. And it was the biggest book distribution party, maybe in the world, at least in America. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was devastated. He got the message. Prabhupada was upset. He goes, I don't know what to do, Prabhupada. Because he felt like, it was actually my fault. Tried to defend himself, but eventually admitted. He said, I don't know what to do, Prabhupada. Maybe I should just go to China. Which is like, maybe I should just get out of everyone's hair and just go somewhere where nobody goes. He could have said, maybe I should go to Siberia. Maybe he could have said, maybe I should go to Slovenia. Because there was, these faraway places, where we could never go and preach. Right? So it wasn't resolved. The next morning after Mangal Arti, Prabhupada's secretary says, Prabhupada wants to talk to you. And he said, I'm not going. Because Tamal Krishna Maharaj is one of the most intuitive devotees I've ever met. He said, I know Prabhupada's going to tell me to go to China. He said, I'm not going. He said, how can you not go? Prabhupada's calling. He just dragged him in there. Prabhupada said, yesterday you mentioned China. I said, Prabhupada, I was just joking. It was just a figure of speech, He said, no, Krishna has spoken to you. Krishna has spoken through you. You should go to China. So when this man in Delhi said, you should start a temple, Prabhupada said, he wants to start a temple. Krishna has spoken to us through him. You, get off here. Go with him. Start a temple in Delhi. But Prabhupada, we don't know anything, and anybody had no money to start a temple in Delhi. So that was how Prabhupada came to America, and that's how it continued. And if you ever wonder how the movement started and how it was successful, now you know. We had to be somewhat crazy in our faith in the order of Guru. But the beautiful thing about it is if you do this enough, you get the faith, because you see it keeps working. I was a president. I had just turned 20. I've been a devotee 8 months, and now, here's your temple. How do you do that? Right? Every night you go to bed and say, Krishna, please help me, because I have no idea what I'm doing. And then later, Prabhupada wrote me a letter, and he said, this is the proper attitude. You pray that I don't know what I'm doing. He said, that's humility. He said, and then Krishna will give you help. And so that's what we do. And I have a funny story. It just illustrates the whole mood. So our temples were most of the temples in ISKCON when I joined were between 4 and 8 devotees. 8 was kind of big. So 4 was just 4 devotees go and start a temple. Maybe grihasta couple, 2 brahmacharis, or 4 brahmacharis. And could you imagine being in a temple? You have 8 devotees and you have deities. 6 offerings a day, not 2 offerings. 6 offerings, dressing and all that. So it's everybody's going to get Brahman initiation very fast, because you need everybody to do the service. So, you take any devotee from the early 70s, they all know how to cook, because we had to cook for the deities, I know how to cook deity prasadam, not necessarily healthy, My wife doesn't like me to cook. She goes, hey, you use too much ghee. You use too much this. You put yogurt in everything. And you put sugar in your sabji. So I go, well, that's how I cook for the deities. You don't have to know how to cook. Just a little sugar in the sabji. Enough yogurt or sour cream, make a chance. It's perfect, right? So, how do we learn how to cook? You say, Prabhu, now you're Brahmin, you have to cook for the deity. He said, I go, well, what do I do? And they said, you go in the kitchen, you pay dandavats, and you pray to the deities that they will guide you in cooking. That was the mood. Because like nobody knew how to cook that well. How do we distribute books? Just pray to Lord Chaitanya. Look, who's training us? Where's the book distribution course? You know, it's like, here's the course. Here's the books, Prabhu. Here's your bag. What do I say? Whatever you're inspired to say. You know. Are you going to teach me how to swim? Yeah. Now you're in the water. Figure it out. That's basically what it was. But my point is that when you go through it once and you see Krishna gives you intelligence and guidance, you're like, okay, this actually works. Now there's another really interesting story. You'll find this story very interesting. I found it very interesting. So I had a godbrother who was a book distributor, and he thought, well, let's create, we never had any kind of instruction for training. And this godbrother is like really systematic, he's got a really good brain, orderly, organized. So he was like, let's train devotees how to do book distribution in a very orderly, systematic way. You do this, you approach people this way, this is the attitude, this is the thinking, you say this when they say that, you say this. It's like, you're answering calls at a call center and you have your sheet. He wanted to do it like that. And circumstantially, he and another book distributor somehow or other got to see Prabhupada. I don't think it was arranged. They got to see Prabhupada. And so he presented this idea to Prabhupada. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, but I want to give you Prabhupada's response because it kind of balances. And Prabhupada, so they told the idea to Prabhupada, and he was like, And he said, It's a bit artificial. What did Prabhupada mean? And then Prabhupada said, every man is his own genius. In other words, I can't just tell you exactly how to run your temple or exactly how to distribute books because Krishna's in your heart and he'll inspire you. So you can read so many letters when devotees wrote to Prabhupada and said, we're doing this program and that program. Prabhupada would say, I can see Krishna's giving you intelligence. That's why Prabhupada could send us out there, because he wasn't sending us alone. He was sending us with sadhana, and if we did sadhana properly, then the super soul gives intelligence. So Prabhupada could send young devotees out and they could spread Krishna consciousness because the super soul was guiding us. That was just how it worked. So he's like, it's okay, but really Prabhupada wanted us to be inspired and not just follow formulas. And it's true, we all are who we are and we do things differently according to our inspiration. So, are you inspired now to do the impossible? I think the growth of the movement was only because devotees were not afraid to fail and not afraid to do the impossible. And I would say it almost became like normal to do that. Like if you didn't do that, like if it wasn't expanding into something like what's the next impossible, it was kind of boring after a while. It's like, okay, we opened this temple. Okay, so what's the next impossible? Okay, now it's a farm. So there's lots of farms around the world, and all those farms were adjacent to temples. Those were the temple farms, because that's what Prabhupada wanted. So that was the next big impossible. It's kind of still impossible. We haven't figured out how to be self-sufficient. I don't think anyone's ever figured that out outside of ISKCON also. I don't think there are very few people that are 100% self-sufficient, but anyway, we can go in that direction. So we were trying to do that impossible. So there's always kind of impossible things. So that was the mood. Krishna will guide me. Jaṭāyu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So any questions, comments? Yes?
I wanted to mention today Sridhar Swami's Vyasa Puja.
Oh, really?
And you mentioned Rāmacandra.
Yeah, well, Sridhar Swami was there with us. was there. We were there in the same temple. I made a Vyasa Puja offering to him. It was a song. And we used to sing it. Have you ever heard that song that I did? Yeah. Before we had Guru Puja, there was no such thing as Guru Puja came later. So I'd play guitar and sing. So I'd take Vyasa Puja offerings and I'd make music and I'd sing them to Prabhupada. And there was one that stuck we used to sing. And he really liked the song and he used to sing it. Paramhansa of Nectar Lake, did you your own true love forsake? If you get it, it's on the USB stick. And so for one Vyasa Puja, I sang that. I recorded the song because he had already left the world, but I recorded the song. I said, play it at his samadhi because he liked it. So, yes. Yeah, we were a heavy crew there. There was 4 of us, all heavyweights. And he was the heaviest of the heavyweights. But he had a very sweet side also. Yeah. Hare Krishna. What time? Where? You doing a celebration?
Not really today fully, but we're planning on the 5th of September or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, some devotees will be doing in Mumbai.
Oh, nice, yeah. Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah. Mm. Yes. Mm. I could tell you what it was like there. We were just like, we were living in an industrial building and there was no heat at night because it was centrally controlled. So it was a bit austere and it was an industrial area, so it was all, those buildings with railroad tracks and we weren't even supposed to live there. And so it was kind of intense. And we would go on Harinam every day. But before we go on Harinam, it was like there was a lot of friction because all the devotees were like heavy characters living in this little small place. And I had this feeling, like Sridhar Maharaj was more qualified. I don't know why I was the president, because he was more qualified than I am. But I have this feeling like he had this problem because I could sing and play mridanga, and he always wanted to sing and play mridanga like me, but he couldn't. And I just learned it in my last life, so I just started doing it. So there's like this little thing going on, like I'm the president, and I can play mridanga. This little like riff going on. And then when we go on Harinam, everything was like fine. Everything was like lovey-dovey and just ecstatic. I remember that. I think if you ask him, he'll probably won't even think like that. But because he wanted me to be the president, but I always felt he was more qualified, and it was like he should have done it. But anyway, I always remember once we went on Harinam, it was like everything was good. Like we have a T-shirt. We didn't make it, but we're making more. No, we have the T-shirt. All the problems stop when the kirtan starts. Exactly what happened there. 100%. Hare Krishna. Yes. It looks like Brajasundari. Is that Brajasundari? Oh, I thought you were leaving last night. No.
No, we are staying for 2 more weeks. I would like to ask a question. Maybe it's a bit more delicate. I would like to ask your opinion about the current mood in ISKCON, about first having some fundraising projects and then deciding what to do with the money, with the funds, as opposite to how it was then.
Well, I can tell a story. I can tell 2 stories. Maybe I'll remember more. But in the beginning of the movement, book distribution was you just meet somebody, give them a mantra card, give them a magazine, and basically give them a Sunday feast lecture, cooked down to 1 minute. This is bhakti yoga, bhakti's devotion, like that. Yoga means linking with God. We're all part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna's the name of God. We're spirit, like that. It's just straight philosophy. they'd take a magazine or wouldn't. And if it was a new town or was like a bunch of hippies, they would all take. And it was just straight, Dodi, sorry, So then one devotee, he discovered how to distribute more books, and he was a little, didn't say so much. Just say like a few things and say, could you give a donation? Or like, we help kids off drugs. Before it was just, can you give a donation? We have a movement like that. So it's kind of like, yeah, well, everybody that joined ISKCON was on drugs, so now we're not, so that's true, but it's not exactly what the money's for. So I was like, right. And then there was a problem in Bangladesh around 1970-71, and George Harrison did a concert to raise money for Bangladesh. I don't know exactly what was happening, but I think there was a food shortage, something. People needed help. So we had the Krishna books with George Harrison's, forward, and Bangladesh became famous because of his concert. So someone found that if you give a book and you say we're collecting donations for Bangladesh, like every young person would give a donation. So that became, went from helping kids off drugs to feeding people in Bangladesh. So some devotees were like, this is too much. And so they wrote to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, if you are telling them you're collecting for Bangladesh, that money has to go to Bangladesh. And then Prabhupada said, I never made up any stories. I just, I preached. And so what we realized is like we didn't know how to preach. And we didn't know how to sell a book on the basis of the merit of the book. And Prabhupada said, sell it on the basis of the merit of the book. You can convince people because the book's so valuable. That took us a long time. And it only, in America, this is just information you wouldn't know, but I was there so I can tell you. What happened in America was, our techniques were not so straightforward because we could distribute more books if we're like, excuse me, just give a donation, whatever you want. Well, how much? You're like, whatever you want. But I have a lot of they call them dollars, you have euros. I have a lot of dollars. Do you have a bigger bill? I could give you change for it. And so they go, I have a 20, so I'll give you 5. And it's like, and you go through all your 1, 2. And instead of giving him 15 back, you give him 5 back and say, it would really be good if you could just leave it at that after you give them 5. After they told you, I'll give you 5, you give them 5 back out of 20, so they've given 15. So could you do that? A lot of people do that. Really be kind. Thanks a lot. And just walk away. Hare Krishna. So it got really bad, right? Not that every devotee would do it, but usually the ones who were distributing the most books, that's what they were doing, because nobody knew how to do it the straightforward way. So there's an island in Latin America called Guyana. And there was a cult that moved to this island. And the cult leader, this was like 1979 or something, the cult leader said, the end of the world is coming. We're going to kill ourselves. And they made Kool-Aid or some drink, they put cyanide in it, and they killed themselves. So every new religious movement was equated with that movement. And so we were equated with it. Now, if you go to up to people, cold, get away, the only way we could distribute a book was to preach straight, because they had to hear we weren't a cult, and the only way they were going to hear is, no, this book is about God, it's about devotion, this is ancient. From that time, 79, 80, that's when devotees learned how to preach straight, because nobody would stop, nobody would take a book, it's just a cult, I don't want to give you money, anything. They'd only give you money if they actually understood what you did. So it naturally changed. That's the history of it. So there's your answer. Does that answer your question? What was the question?
The question was, what's your opinion about the mood now, about having all sorts of fundraising projects, not having a goal, like for what are we raising money. We just first raise money and then we decide what we do with the money.
Oh yeah. How can you raise money if people don't know what it's for?
For example, you go and have a sale and people go and buy those things, and then, I don't know, you go and sell prasadam or something, then you get money, but you don't have a purpose for that, for those money yet in your head or something.
What's your opinion?
Well, previously in my temple, my ex-temple president said that when we want to start a project, we start it and then the money will come. Krishna will send money. So I'm inclined to that. But I see that ISKCON is going towards the fundraising direction more than...
Yeah, well, I could tell you what I think Prabhupada would say. But you know, Prabhupada was more concerned that that money is properly utilized for whatever it's going to be utilized for. That's his main concern. So, and his concern was that a certain percentage of money should go for book distribution. And, you know, he gave us certain projects. So, in my experience, he was more concerned with what you do when you have it, not specifically this one project over another, but it's not misspent, it's managed properly. And we don't minimize book distribution in the name of, I don't know, doing some other project. So, generally we raise funds for projects, so, but you're talking just about generally raising money for the temple.
No, for all sorts of things. I saw these projects in ISKCON that we have projects and we raise money. This is a new management style that's
as opposed to
first we have a project, or first we think, okay, we need money for renovating the temple, and then we raise money. As opposed to, okay, we raise money, what do we do with the money? Let's renovate the temple.
Yeah.
It's a different
hard for me to comment. So your point is we should know what we're going to do with the money before we raise it.
My point is not investing a lot of effort in
raising
money
if need.
We don't need it first. We don't know we need it. So.
Yeah, of course. Well, you always need money, but you're saying we're okay financially. We don't need it, so why are we going out putting energy into raising more money and we don't know what it's for?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, you know, if you're just raising money and you're stopping book distribution, that's also a problem. And that does happen. But I don't want to get in trouble. So, because if that's the policy here, and I say, that's a really bad idea, this will be the last time I'm invited here. I can tell you a story, though. This is a beautiful... This man, he was helping people become millionaires. And he said, if you want to become a millionaire, the first thing you need to do is be very clear on how your money is going to be used to help other people. He said that's the first step, because why just make $1 million for yourself? It's not benevolent. So you figure, okay, what is the money going to be for? You have the vision, how we're going to use it. So it's generally inspiring to have a vision of how you can use the money, isn't it? Generally. Anyway, if you have too much money, just let me know. I can help you spend it. I have all kinds of ideas. You know, there could be a fear like you're collecting for a project, and maybe people don't like the project, so only half the people like the project. So if you don't tell them what the project is, it's just a donation, you'll get a donation. If you tell them what the project is, maybe they don't like it, then you don't get money. Maybe that's a consideration. I don't know. And then they give the money, and then you do the project. And they're like, why did you do that project? If I would have known, I wouldn't have given the money. So that's the problem, potentially, right? Yeah. And the other problem is you collect the money for the project and spend it on something else. That's the biggest problem. Or you collect, another problem is you collect the money and you never do the project because you don't have enough money and the money's sitting there. And then you should give it back to people. A lot of them won't take it, but that's a huge problem. Could be, potentially. But I have another story. You won't like it, but it's true. And maybe it doesn't apply today. Another context. Bhaktisiddhanta collected for a project, and they had his brahmacharis collect. They collected it, and they gave him the money. And then he said, a little later he said, okay, I need you to go out and collect for this project. And I said, but we just collected for the project. He said, no, I spent that on something else. And so Prabhupada gave his commentary. Not that I'm saying we should do that, because we would upset lots of people who thought they were giving for this and we spent it on that. He said that he didn't want his disciples to become, what's the word? When you just, I can't think of it. Complacent, yeah. He didn't want them to become complacent. Like, okay, well, we got the money, nothing to do. So he said he always kept them on the edge, like, we need more, there's not enough. So, because otherwise they just go to sleep. So, it's a principle. Whether you can follow it exactly, that's different, but it's a principle. I think what I've seen as a management principle is people give their money where their inspiration is, and they give their money where their love is. So if they're inspired by your management, if you have good relationships with them, then that's where they give the money. I mean, I basically survive as a Brahmin on donations. People, they say, I like what you're doing here, right? And I realize that you don't get money if they don't like what you're doing. And how did I realize that? Because if I apply myself, as my workshops get better, it seems like people get more generous. But it's not like they're getting more generous. They're just appreciating. They've got value. So when you provide value for people and you have good relationships, they like to give. That's what I've seen. And they see what you're doing and they trust you. Oh, last time you collected, you managed it properly, you used it for what you said. They trust you. They'll give you more. So my mantra is, wherever there's love, there's donation. Because it's really hard to get donations from people who don't like you. And I've never got a big donation from someone who didn't really like me. It just doesn't happen that way. I once got a donation of $10,000 from someone I didn't even know. And I wrote him, and I said, what happened? And he said, well, I just got an inheritance, so this wasn't that much. And he said, I really love what you're doing. I really love the work you're doing. So where there's love, people will give. And so you're a good steward of the money, you're a good manager, you have good vision, your vision is inspiring. People will give. And your vision is in consideration of all the things devotees are telling you, we should do this and that. Then, yeah, I always said we should do this, I'll give money to that. I had a man who was helping us once. So we said, well, how do we get money from people? He said, bring them in to your committee, don't ask for money, ask for ideas. And you said, that's a good idea. They'll give the money for it. It's their idea. So they love the idea. You're doing what they want, they'll support it. But if you're doing something, that is a stupid idea. Why would I give you money for that? You want to build a rocket ship on the top, and you want to have a helicopter launching pad, and you get a helicopter, and we're going to preach all over Slovenia with our helicopters. That's a stupid idea. I'm not going to give you any money for that. Did that answer your question? Or, yeah. Anyway, we got the bonus one of a little ISKCON history on, what Prabhupada expected of us. Okay, should we stop? No? One more question. Two more questions. Okay. Did Odoya Chandrika, did you hear you have a sister now? Chandrika's sister?
Yes, I heard yesterday.
Yeah.
You just connected on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
For a sudden time we wanted to know the names, and then we just started.
Yeah, so I have a godbrother named Sarvatma. You have Mahatma, Sarvatma, another one Atma. So we're like we are the Atma brothers, Mahatma, Sarvatma, and Atma. Like that, yeah. Oh, you have the mic. Okay.
Hi Krishna. First of all, thank you so much for coming here. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the Mata seminar, but I really hope and pray that you will come next year. And also, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing stories and experience with Srila Prabhupada and your enthusiasm. And especially I'm very grateful that you are celebrating your God brother, our Prabhupada's ambassadors like Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And now Sridhar Maharaj, because he is, today is his Vyasa Puja, and he was known as a Jolly Swami. So just wonder if you can share some jolly story regarding that. Thank you.
He became jollier later on. During those brahmachari days, he wasn't that jolly. I would have called him the heavy Swami. I've seen the heavy side of him a lot. I think he learned, I think he had a very, heavy life, right before he became a devotee, So I think in the beginning it was like, And then when I knew him later, he seemed to have been able to take everything more as a joke, more like that. But I didn't have that much association later on. So, yeah. I don't have so many. I'm trying to think of the jolly stories, I mean, I seen him in pictures in Polish Woodstock, going up to the bodyguards and flexing his muscles and, getting these big Polish guys to dance and, things like that. But it wasn't jolly in the early days. It was the heavy Swami. It was the heavy brahmachari. Yeah. I was a little afraid of him. Yeah, a lot of these young brahmachari sannyasis, when they got older, they mellowed out. They got more mellow, because they were trying to be like strict young, and it was hard when they were young. And in doing that, being heavy, they had a lot of they created some bad relationships in the way because they were so heavy and intolerant. And I've seen some have just really regretted that they treated people that way. And so later in life, they changed almost 180 degrees. Just like started thinking, we did so much service, and I was all about service, and I was so heavy with devotees. And he said, but it's all about relationship. So they, I know one sannyasi, well, he left sannyas, but he was a GBC, and he used to be in Los Angeles. And he came back for Rath Yatra. It was the first time I saw him in like 20, 25 years. And he would go up to people and he'd say, do you know me? Because he couldn't always remember. And if they say yes, he'd say, please accept my obeisances because I must have offended you. And he bowed down. And every person, do you know me? I know I offended you. So that happens when you get older. The relationships become important. And when you're young, it's like, accomplished, let's get it done. Are you with us or not? Because you're not with us, I don't want to see your ugly face. We're just doing it. If you're not going to do it, out of here. Now we were, I'm exaggerating, but that was kind of the mood. Prabhupada wants it, this is how we're doing it. If you can't do it, tough luck. Get out of here. come, knock you on the head with my dund at 4 a.m. if you're not up. You don't like it, you can leave. Kind of like that, just young fanatic. So it's a great lesson, that they were. And some people only remember them from the young days and say, I can't deal with this different. I go, no, he changed. He's totally different. He's not like that. He just wants good relationships. That's all. He doesn't criticize anybody. He's not heavy. He's just loving, like that. So I missed the jolly Swami. I only got the heavy Swami part.
Thank you so much.
Sorry for that.
For sharing this transformative experience.
Yeah. Okay. Audarya. The moon of magnanimity is going to speak. We were having fun yesterday. We were calling everybody. We were calling them by their name in English. English translation of Sanskrit. That was a lot of fun.
I missed that party.
Yeah, so you are the moon of magnanimity, right? Magnanimous, the magnanimous. The moonlight of being magnanimous. Okay, let's hear your magnanimous question or comment.
Yeah, I would like to ask you how to stay magnanimous. Because you were saying about the amazing story, how to do big things, how you did it for Prabhupada, because Prabhupada said something, so this was something from outside, inspiration came. So is it possible to do big things also from find that inside of you, that inspiration, and if it is yes, so how to
find that inspiration,
and how to stay on that, that
level of inspiration.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you how a couple of ways I do it. I think the most fundamental way that I do it is I can never ignore what Prabhupada gave. And I can't ignore what that can do for other people. So it's like, it's like we're having this epidemic. So imagine 2 years ago, I go, Daria, shh, come here. I've got the cure for COVID. Here, it's these little pills I made. It's homeopathic. Just anyone's got COVID, it's gone. And if they take it, they'll never get it. It's like, wow, really? Yeah. We'll end the pandemic in 2 days. It's like, well, that's a big thing. I've got the cure for cancer. Shh, I got it. It's easy. This pill. It's finished. It's like, wow. You wouldn't say, it's too much trouble to distribute it. I'm just, I'm fine. I got my tubercores and, Holiva on Sunday. Why do I have to bother with this? This is going to be austere. I gotta, convince people this cures cancer. If I cure cancer, I'll be arrested. So I just think, wow, look what Prabhupada gave. How can you turn your back on that? It's like, and the more popular YouTube has become, the more chance I got to listen to bogus gurus and people who are disciples of bogus gurus. And every time I listen, I just feel like crying. I think, you don't know. You know some things, but you don't know the most important things. It's just like, Prabhupada, you saved us. We have to nobody knows these things. We have to, or someone gives a big talk on karma and is like 50% is like weird. Where did you learn that? Because you learned it from someone, and then you interpreted it, and he interpreted and gave it to you, and you interpreted it, and, So that's one inspiration. The other inspiration, this is a little more difficult because there's a lot of guilt that goes along with this. Not a lot of guilt, but some guilt. Prabhupada wanted to make the whole world Krishna conscious. How are we doing? What percentage do we have? So it's like, okay, if that doesn't keep you going, I don't know what is, because there's a lot of work. And the third thing is, the thing that it's like why I can't sleep at night sometimes is because I know there's so many, they're a devotee, but I don't know if anyone in this temple can actually take care of them. Or I don't know if my presentation to them was strong enough for them, So I see all this potential. It drives me crazy, you know. So it keeps me going, you know. I can't, you know. I mean, sometimes I personally extend myself because I feel like people need help. They've come to Krishna consciousness. Now once they come, you're bringing them in. You got to really take care of them. So that's my inspiration. Maybe even more than bringing them, taking care of them once they come. And I think, well, everyone who's coming now, he's Prabhupada's grandchild, or maybe great-grandchild. And so I'm Prabhupada's son. They're the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren, so I have to take care of them. It's the family. And another thing also, but you're still in the movement when it's young. But maybe I can give you a vision of how we feel, and maybe you can apply this to how you feel. So I joined, I think there were 19 temples when I joined, and maybe 300 devotees. So that's pretty much like raising a baby and watching it grow, watching these little temples of 4, you know, get to 8 and 12 and 20, and then sell and get a church, and then to 60, and, you know, like just watching that, going, oh my God. This was like this used to be a little baby. You've grown so much. Big boy now. You know? Haven't seen you in 20 years. Yeah, I've got a PhD. Last time I saw you were in diapers. You know, kind of like that. You know. So then Prabhupada says, "Here's all your here's your little children. Take care of them," and then he leaves. And so it's like, okay, here's movement. It was like 10 years. It's like you've left us a 10-year-old boy, and so we have to take care of it. So, but I think you can all think like that. Well, whatever, it's a 50-year-old boy or whatever. It's a young boy. So I just feel like constantly like this young boy needs help. He's not getting his vitamins. He's eating food, that's not healthy. We have to stop this. So it's really hard for me. I mean, personally, it's difficult because when I see things that are going wrong, it's hard to just you have to have boundaries in your life, but it's hard. So I just my motors just never stops because there's always new people to come. There's always problems in ISKCON to solve. There's always devotees to help. There's, and then maybe the most inspiring thing is that sometimes by Krishna's mercy, I can taste some nectar and get some deep realization, and then I think, and I see so many devotees who aren't getting it, and that's another thing that drives me crazy. The other day, Leela Sukha said, "Did you sleep well last night?" And I go, "I never sleep well at night." I go, "It's like, why don't you sleep?" I go, "Well, we just had an ecstatic program. There's going to be another ecstatic program tomorrow, and I have 1 million things, and there's 1 million to do, and 1 million people, 1 billion, 7 billion of them, basically 8 billion, that aren't Krishna conscious. How can you sleep well?" How could you even sleep at all, knowing there's 8 billion people that aren't devotees? So that's just, and then if you want to put all that on steroids, find what inspires you in service and then use that inspiration in service to solve those problems. So my personal inspiration, what I'm inspired to do. And so then it's like both sides, I want to create this result, I'm inspired to do it this way. So then I'm just a madman, basically. I just, one project to another, nonstop. I can't control myself. And you know what I always think? I think, I'm so fortunate to be engaged in Prabhupada's service. It's like I can't imagine doing anything that I'm doing if it wasn't for him. I would just be bored out of my mind. Like, what am I going to sing? What am I going to teach? What am I going to tell people? People say, I'm suffering. Oh, sorry, I can't help you. So it's such an honor, that we can use all our talents and intelligence and abilities when we have an outlet for it, which can actually help people. So I'm so grateful for that, do that for Prabhupada. So, I'm the Energizer bunny. I can't really turn it off. My wife's not so happy about that. Like, can't you just slow down a little bit? There's 8 billion people, out there, they don't know about Krishna. How can I slow down? I'm not that bad, but... So does that help you?
Thank you so much. It shows that you're really a representative of your name, which Prabhupada gave to you.
Anything else?
Hare Krishna. I just have a comment. First of all, thank you so much for your classes. It's not the first time I'm hearing, because I do hear your classes on YouTube, and I always feel very inspired because, of course, whatever what you preach is Guru Sadhana Shastra, but at the same time, it's also very practical, and that's very nice to see. I just wanted to say just a small comment that as we have 6 loving exchanges, and then what I experience, with devotees, like sometimes I don't feel like there are 6 loving exchanges actually. I mean, just giving prasad and accepting prasad is just not the one of it. There are other loving exchanges as well. But I see, I've lived in different temples before also, and as I see that our own devotees, don't treat each other with love and compassion, and we are just like, for example, somebody new comes to the movement, we are just so nice to that person. Oh, please come and have a seat or whatever, But to our own devotees who have actually given the life and who are serving with so much dedication, we don't treat them well, And I feel like that's one of the reasons why devotees leave, because they don't feel valued, loved, and cared, within our own community.
Yeah.
So that's why they're like, do you know what? I should just go.
Yeah.
And just of course, we should be tolerant and humble, but just because we should be tolerant, that doesn't mean that we can treat devotees like we can throw our tantrums at them, and they should be tolerant and speak to them whatever in front of everyone and insult them and just be like, oh, you should be tolerant. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's just a comment. I
have a story for you. You're gonna like
Okay.
this story. I don't know the exact details, but this man, could have been a woman, was coming to the temple for like 20 years. And never, no tilak, no japa beads, no. These were the days when you would come to the temple. If you were into it, you would become a devotee, you would move in. So this man was coming. It could have been 20 years. So he's coming, like every Sunday feast. And usually in those days, if you're coming, after a year or 6 months, you just move in the temple. So they asked him, you've been coming for so many years, why didn't you move in the temple? He said, so I could see, you're really nice to the guests, but when you become a devotee, it changes. So I just want to stay a guest. That way you'll be nice to me. Hare Krishna. There's a fundamental problem. What you described is a result of another problem. And if we evaluate our advancement on the basis of service, then we will feel entitled to do whatever we have to do and treat anybody any way we have to if we get the service done. So that justifies the ill behavior. That's where you get a lot of that. I need you to do this, you showed up late, and then I get very heavy with you because I want to serve Prabhupada, and you're not serving Prabhupada properly, and this service was late or something. So I feel justified. And so what I'm doing, in some cases it might be justified, but it might be anger out of love. But in the most cases, I'm allowing myself to act like an ordinary person. I'm not acting like a Vaishnava, but I'm using the justification that it's in service. So that's a problem we need to be aware of, because we are supposed to imbibe the qualities of a Vaishnava and the instructions of Krishna 24/7, no matter what the situation is. And I think if we do that, we won't have a problem with loving relationships, because that's one of the qualities of a devotee. They're kind, they're compassionate, they're empathetic, and so on. But if we're too focused on, everything is evaluated by what I accomplish, not by who I am. Just get it done somehow or other. Then we run into a problem. There's a second problem, which is more managerial, that sometimes we're just overburdened. We have too much. And so everybody's tense. And there's no time, to sit and talk because we have too much to do. So that's just something managers should be thoughtful about before you start some new project. Are we already maxed out already? And everybody's almost going to have a nervous breakdown, and we're starting a new project. And that can create tension, and if we create tension, then sometimes we'll act unkindly just because we're tense. So there may be other reasons, but that's something to consider. Does that make sense? Yeah. This is a universal problem, even in the corporate world. You people are a number, evaluated by their output. We're doing a corporate program today. You want to hear what I'm going to say? This is so cool. You're going to love this. And this is for us also, not just for them. So, if you're a leader, you need to answer yes to these two questions. And if the answer is not yes, you need to figure out how to make it a yes. First question, do you love your employees? Question 2, do your employees love you? If you love them and they love you, you have an amazing company. Right? If the leaders love the devotees love the leaders, you have an amazing temple. Now, if the leaders get 1, that's on a scale of 1 to 10, if they get, do you love your employees at 10, automatically the employees will love the leader as a product, right? Yeah, so. But we can ask ourselves, do I love the devotees? Do they love me? Because that's what we want to create. Hare Krishna. And we will end with that question you can meditate on. Do you love the devotees and do they love you? Because if you don't love them and they don't love you, we've got a problem here. Something went wrong somewhere along the line, right? So we can meditate on that. And then, if I love them, how do I treat them? How do you treat somebody you love? I'll tell you one other thing. This is amazing. I wouldn't tell you it if it wasn't amazing. They found that in groups, the people who are not empathetic always are problematic in groups. That to have good synergy in groups, you have to be sensitive to other people's feelings and needs. Did you know that? And when you're not sensitive to other people's feelings and needs, it creates problems in a group. So, sometimes you can look at somebody, you just look at them and you know something's wrong, right? In groups which are sensitive, they'll immediately stop and say, wait a minute, it looks, you ever have a meeting and someone's not talking and they're like, they disagree with everything. If you're sensitive, you say, wait a minute, we have to let so-and-so speak. It looks like you're not happy about what we said. Tell us what's, and listen. That's what it means. Now, you say, okay, that's good, I like that. Okay, but if you just analyze what a devotee is, naturally a devotee would do that. It doesn't have to be told as a principle or a strategy. If you're actually becoming Krishna conscious, you would do that. I would think, wouldn't you? But we don't always do it because we get too focused on, I was at Mangalarti, I chanted 16 rounds, who are you to say anything to me? Who are you to insinuate that I did something wrong? That's what happens. We validate ourselves based on performance. And so we may misperform in terms of virtue, character, and it doesn't even matter to us because we don't think it's important. But then you end up with a society if people are unhappy and then they go away. This is amazing. Oh, this is a depressing thought to end class on, but it's powerful. Rambaru told me this story. She met a devotee who had left ISKCON for 20 years and came back. She said, what happened? He said, He said, why did you leave and why have you come back? He said, I came to ISKCON because I was, who knows, lonely and unhappy. Something like that. Sad and lonely. And I left ISKCON because I was sad and lonely. Hare Krishna. Wow. So Prabhupada said, if somebody leaves, 50% is our fault. We should never think, well, he's just in Maya and he's the this and that. Yes, he's a 50% our fault. So if someone leaves, we should never give them a reason to leave. It should be on their own accord. It's just, I'm weak, I can't do it. But we should never validate, we should never create experiences that would validate their leaving. We definitely don't want to do that. We want to create. I had a disciple, and she left me. Well, she wasn't initiated. And so one of the devotees told me it's just she lost faith in ISKCON or something like that. And she said something that made me so happy. She said, I really appreciate all the devotees. And I really appreciate Mahatma Prabhu. And I thought, wow, somebody leaves like that, even though they have to leave because they lost faith. That's good. I was really happy to hear that. And one time, Prabhupada had a disciple and he wanted to leave. He lost faith in Prabhupada. And there was a discussion. And it was a very nice discussion, very friendly, and then he left. And Prabhupada said, better they leave as friends than as enemies. That's his own disciple. He's not chastising anything. Better we leave as, because maybe they'll come back. So these are important things. If we're going to expand and grow and have stability, so we don't just have diarrhea, we grow, we eat, go to the toilet, eat, go to the toilet, eat, we're never putting on weight. You know the revolving door? You go in one side, you come out the other, So we don't want revolving door. I have to tell you something else. This topic is this is Mahatma's topic, so it's going to be hard to stop. But have you ever done an exercise where you go around the room and everyone appreciates someone? Just thank you for being you. You're a devotee. I appreciate but you actually feel the appreciation. So if you feel it, the other person feels it, right? So so I do these exercises and I just sit and watch. And I would say within a minute of the exercise, the energy in the room is much different. Everybody can feel it. I'm not some energy healer. It's just anybody can feel the energy is shifted. And so I'm just watching it, And devotees are going. In China, they were crying. Because in China, they tend to be shut down emotionally. That's just how they're raised. So they started expressing appreciation. Why are you crying? And I go, we've never done this before. It's like, oh my God. And so I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, people are going to be walking on the street, and they're going to walk in the temple. They're going to feel something. They're going to I don't know what it is. I just feel something. I have to go in there. And so I'm thinking, what if this was the atmosphere and people came and this was the atmosphere? You wouldn't have to say much. That would make devotees. The story I told last night, my friend came to the temple and he said, I'm not going back because if I do, I'll leave. Most people in the early days, that's how they joined. A lot of them just came and never left. They didn't even understand that much. It's just they were overwhelmed by the mood. They said, these are my people. So to me, I feel the most powerful preaching platform we have are the relationships we have, because people will see those relationships and they'll think, I want to be part of this, because I don't find these relationships anywhere else. If we don't have those relationships, people aren't stupid. They'll see it and they go, it's just another religion, right? Like all the other hypocritical religions. Talk about love and then they're gossiping and criticizing. So why would they want to be part of that? So although we want programs and we want books and so many things, the real preaching is, as Prabhupada said, show love through your action. So if we show love to one another, I believe it's just going to attract people, because that's how it started in the early days of ISKCON. It's just people were like, wow, this is so nice. We come to the temple and go, it'd be like 10 o'clock. You have to go home. I don't want to leave. It's so nice here. Yeah. So our example is the greatest preaching, right? So these are things we should discuss and work on and improve. Okay, I better stop because. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I want to ask, you said about those questions with yes as an answer, but I don't know, how can we know if they love us back?
Yeah. I think you can assume if you show affection to someone and they don't love you back, that means they're incapable of loving. They have their own emotional issues. But you can only do your side. But you will see, because they'll be happy, they'll be satisfied. You know, I go to temples. You know how I know? You know how I know temples are well run and managed? It's the number of complaints I get. I go to some temples and it's like, 14 devotees will complain to me. I go to some temples, I get 0 complaints. When devotees are happy, they're happy. They stop complaining. Complaining is coming from people not being happy. So if we as leaders are affectionate, kind, generally we can assume they're happy. I had a friend, he was in charge of a department in IBM. He said every other department would lose people except his. And he said, I said, why? He said, because I was personally involved in everyone's life, not just at the office, but their lives. If they had problems like, go, leave her, don't come to work today. I knew their names of all their kids. There were like 80 people. I knew their wife's name. I knew everything. I would counsel them, guide them. He said there was no reason they would ever want to leave. And the main reason people leave companies is because they don't like the leaders. So if you like a leader, why would you want to leave? Right? And and we bring so many devotees and we train them, and if they have wonderful experience here, and we help them transition, so when they move outside, that they land properly like that, then they'll always want to serve and they'll always appreciate the temple. We don't want to bring devotees in and then burn them out and then they leave and I'm not going there anymore. I don't like those people. What's the point? Right? Doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jaṭāyu go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.
Долу се сервира. Защото е затворите, ако се предправя на колко, тук е пресаден и родили, сладе на мисъл.
Окей.